Hello and welcome back for episode 3 of Gladdstown. I'm Joe Farrell and I am excited as hell for the new World of Warcraft expansion. Oh my god. I'd also like to take this moment to mention that this is the third time I've tried to record this intro. The first time I said welcome back for episode 3 of Gladdstown. No. And the second time I forgot to plug my computer in, so it died. So we're off to a pretty good start today. In case you couldn't tell, it's going to be a lot of World of Warcraft talk today. So I hope you like Blizzard. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about myself, because I love talking about myself. I'm awesome. I left my summer job a week early so I could focus, really so I could focus on my podcast, but also so I could do all the packing and, be ready for this whole moving deal. Uh, and it's all going really well. I'm going shopping tomorrow for all the stuff that I need to, live, dishes, bed sheets, that kind of thing. Yesterday wasn't that productive, though. I treated it sort of as my vacation day, seeing as I really haven't had a day off in, like, 3 months. I mean, it's just constant stuff, Sunday to Sunday. I've got work every day, I've got drum corps on the weekends. And that doesn't sound like a big commitment, but first of all, it's 2 hours away, and it's all weekend. I get back at like 2 o'clock on, well, we get done at 2 o'clock on Sunday. I get back at 4 o'clock on Sunday, which basically leaves me with my Sunday evening, which isn't bad. It gives me time to do things. But still, it's like one evening a week that I have time to actually get something done. And it's just nice to not have to worry about not having any time for anything. Because I've got the week to do things in. And drum corps ends Labor Day weekend anyway, so we're almost there. So what I did yesterday was I got back into WoW. Yep, I'm back. I set up a 3-month recurring subscription, so I'm back for at least 3 months into, what is that, August, September, October, into November. September, October, November, yeah. Okay, math. I got back into the game, and I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to start fresh. I logged into some of my old characters just to see how they were doing, poke around a little bit, say hi to the old guildies. And then I rolled an Orc Warlock in Earthen Ring. Totally new server, totally new character, never played a Warlock all the way before. I think I've played him to like level 30 or so, but that's about it. So I played basically all day, just sort of getting hyped for the new expansion. And I recently got a new computer, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I had no idea what I was missing in terms of graphics in this game. Wow. I had everything set to low on my old computer. It was a complete potato. Now I can set everything to ultra. The game looks fantastic. I had no idea WoW could look like this. And don't get me wrong, it's not like Final Fantasy XIV level kinds of things, but it's got that Blizzard charm, that sort of cartoony style, and yet everything's still realistic in its own way. It's just gorgeous. I love it. And I can see shadows now. I can see all the grass. It's really weird, actually. What I'm really looking forward to is getting back into Pandaria. I didn't even touch it yet. I haven't touched any of the new zones yet, because I want to just wait till I get there and just bask in the glory of these updated graphics. Because, I mean, I'm in Northern Barrens right now, and, it's not going to look fantastic, because it's a pretty old area. Once I get into Pandaria, I think that's when things are going to start looking really good. Draenor even more. Haven't So yeah, I'm waiting to touch all of those, probably with this Warlock. Although I'm also working on a Hunter now, and I'll talk about why. later down. What I want to do today is I want to talk about the new expansion because there is a lot of information out there to go through, and I figured this is a really great place to take all that information, chop it down into what's important, and just sort of get a discussion going. So, the title of the expansion is World of Warcraft Legion. It revolves around the return of the Burning Legion, specifically Illidan's Stormrage, uh, which at first it sounds like, oh, they're rehashing Burning Crusade. Great. And I don't think that's what they're doing. This is focused a lot around Gul'dan, and I think we're going to see a lot more of the actual Legion characters as opposed to Illidan himself. And I am just all in on this new expansion. I've renewed my subscription. I'm diving back in head first. I'm actually thinking of trying out the famed Alia Iacta Est guild. It's one of the biggest guilds in WoW. I've never been a huge fan of gigantic guilds, but I thought, hey, new subscription, new experiences. Why not give it a shot? I still wonder if it's a bit too big for me, but I'm going to try it out. I'm going to spend maybe a month in there after I get a character developed and stuff and just see if it's a good fit for me. Because I do love the WoW community, and guilds are a huge part of that. I've always wanted to make my own guild too, and I've tried several times, but recruitment is really tough. That's the one thing about guilds in WoW. It's definitely something you have to have a group of people to start with already, which I don't. I used to have a lot of people I played WoW with that I knew IRL, and as the years went on, they all dropped out of the game, and I made friends in-game too, but through guilds. So I don't really have anyone to create a guild with. I used to be a part of the guild Reported for Awesome on Wormrest Accord, I think. That sounds right, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a couple of months since I've played. They were really great people, and I'd love to get involved with them again. I'm sure I will. But at the same time, I do feel like I want to start with a clean slate. And I don't know if I'm going to want to do that when they raise the level cap to 110. And yikes, that is a scary number for people who aren't familiar with the game. For anyone who just wants to come into the game, like, wow, 110 levels I have to go through? How am I ever going to do that? And the fact of the matter is, it's going to be really hard. World of Warcraft is no longer a game you can just jump into and be like, yeah, alright, let's go run some raids. It's just not. And I'm really of the opinion that after they hit 100 as the level cap, they should have changed something. Unless they totally change the leveling process, 110 just seems like way too much. Now granted, what I have in mind would take a ton of work, but what I'd really like is if they sort of fudged the lines between zones in a way that you ended up with, well, this is a low-level zone, or this is a higher-level zone, instead of this zone is for levels 110, this is for levels 10 through 15, this is for 15 through 20, this is for 85 through 90, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because what you get when you do that is you go into this area and you're like, oh, I hit level 10, time to abandon all my quests and head to the next zone. And that's the entire leveling process in World of Warcraft right now. Granted, it's fast, but it's not fun. Not for most people anyway. Personally, I enjoy it because for me, something about the grinding in WoW just works for me. It clicks with me. I can't really say what it is for sure. It could be the graphics, it could be the story, it could be the music, it could be the controls themselves. I don't really know what it is that makes grinding in WoW for me so much fun, but it is. But it's also not fun for everyone else. So I think by blurring these lines between zones, it would allow people to explore their surroundings a little bit more. Because I don't know about new players to the game, but I personally don't. There are there's probably one or two zones I've only been to maybe once in my time playing World of Warcraft, and there's a pretty good chance I haven't seen any of those zones because I go in there, I level out, and I'm gone. And I think if by fudging these lines, it gives people a reason to stay in these zones a little longer and experience this content that these developers worked so hard on instead of just flying through it. And that was the real problem with the Cataclysm expansion, I think. What probably my least favorite expansion because all I did in that expansion, I got on my flying mount, I hopped from quest objective to quest objective, and I just leveled to 85. Then I jumped into raids. That was the entire expansion for me, and I just didn't get a lot out of it. But then came Mists of Pandaria. You couldn't fly right away. That was a great idea. By forcing you to walk around, what are you going to do? You have to see things. And I'm glad I saw all of Pandaria. I've literally seen every inch of that island because I spent so much time exploring it. Because I'd get doing these quests and realize, wow, this is a really, really cool area. It's an amazing zone. They put so much work into this. And I just explore. And Pandaria is it's actually the only zone, major area, that I've gotten the exploration achievement au naturel. Everywhere else I had to go back and just sort of fly around getting those little extra bits on the map. Pandaria, I just got the achievement because I wanted to see the whole thing. I got the achievement before I got flying because I was walking around all of these zones, and the same thing happened with Draenor. I felt the need to go to every corner of every zone in Draenor because it was amazing. The things they did were incredible. It was gorgeous, and I wanted to do everything. I was hunting for rare mobs, something I'd never done before in my life. I never cared about hunting for rare mobs. I never cared about achievements. Suddenly, this was the huge thing with Draenor for me. I actually went for the Lore Master quests, where I completed every quest in a zone before I moved on. Because I just didn't feel that need to rush my way to level 100. I wanted to experience everything. And I am just in awe of Blizzard for doing that, because it's just an amazing job they've done. And I hope they keep it up for Legion, and it looks like they are. One of the major things I'm excited for is artifact weapons, and this seems to be going along with their attempts to make legendaries just a little bit more palatable for people. There's going to be 36 different artifact weapons available, one for each class specialization. The quests to get these weapons are actually going to be one of the first things you do in Legion, and they're going to be broken down by class and specialization. For example, Retribution Paladins, they're going to go to the Broken Shore to retrieve Ashbringer. Protection Warriors are going to discover the legend of the Vrickle King. Death Knights are actually going to go to the base of Icecrown to retrieve shards of Frostmourne. And these weapons are going to stay with you for the entire expansion, actually leveling with you, sort of similar to the way heirlooms do. And as it stands right now, it sounds like they're going to start off as an epic and turn into a legendary, sort of the way the Cloak did in Pandaria and the Ring did in Draenor. But there is actually some talk of them starting as a legendary or even having their own classification altogether. I think that final option would make the most sense to me, because they're not really like anything we've ever had in World of Warcraft before. These weapons are going to be aesthetically customizable. To what extent, we don't totally know yet, but we do know that these customizations are going to be unlocked by doing things like leveling up your weapon, participating in raids, PvP. There's even word of some that are just going to come for getting achievements for you completionists out there. Feral druids, this is where it gets interesting, are actually going to have their shape-shifted form changed. Now, what I'd like to know is, does this apply to guardian druids as well? Because they spend a lot of their time in the bear form, and I imagine it will. And this is an amazing solution to the first problem that comes to mind with these artifact weapons is they look so cool, but I'm never going to see them. And it also makes me wonder about Boomkin. Of course, oh, you know what? Never mind. Boomkins, you can see their weapon. That's pretty much the only thing you can see, so that does work. You will be able to transmog your artifact weapon if you so choose, but like legendaries, other weapons won't be able to be transmogged to look like your artifact weapon. Speaking of transmogs, there is actually word that some of the newer legendaries, well, the newer legendary, the Cloak from Mists of Pandaria, because it's no longer available, you will be allowed to transmog other cloaks to look like that, which will be amazing. Now, you're not going to be able to transmog things like the Warglaives from Burning Crusade, because that's just something you can go out and get. But I think that's a really cool step forward into being able to transmog legendaries. We're also looking at some really significant class changes that I'm personally really excited for. First and foremost, I've just gotta lead with this because I am so excited. Marksmanship hunters are no longer going to have pets. Only survival and beastmaster hunters will have pets, and I love this! Oh my god, it feels a bit more like a Dungeons & Dragons ranger now, and you can bet your sweet ass I will be playing a marksmanship hunter in the next expansion, because personally I just don't care for the pets. I really like the bows. That's what I like. I like the ranged weapons. I don't like the pets. It's the same reason I don't like playing a Frost mage. I just don't like the elemental. It's in the way. The only class that I really enjoy having pets is Warlock. And we're going to talk about that next, because Demonology Warlocks are actually losing their metamorphosis to focus rather on summoning demons. And this is another thing I like, because Metamorphosis was really cool at first, but I wasn't really huge on it. And if you don't know, what Metamorphosis was you charged up this bar, and then you could transform into a demon form, which was really cool. But it wasn't for me. It wasn't for people who really enjoyed caster classes, because it really felt like sort of a melee kind of thing. And it actually served as a deterrent that kept me from playing Demonology, even though I love the other bonuses you get from that. So I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a good change. Some people might miss Metamorphosis. I'm sure I'll miss Metamorphosis too, but this is a fair trade-off to me. We're also getting some minor class, well, not minor class changes, but smaller class changes that we don't need to talk about as much. Frost Death Knights are going to be going dual wield instead of two-handed, which I like. Discipline Priests, as far as we know, are going to be more of offensive healers. And the feel of each rogue spec is due to change. Assassination is going to focus more on poisons. Subtlety is going to almost have kind of a ninja motif. And combat is actually going to be pirate-like, with kind of a swashbuckling feel, they're saying. And that change could get me to play rogues too, because something about the rogue feel has never been quite right with me. It's just never totally sat with me, and I can't get used to it. So that'll be a fun thing to get into. Can you hear that? I hope you can't hear that. It's some guy working across the street. What was I talking about? Class orders. They're going to be basically the new garrisons, this time with a focus rather on champions instead of followers. Champions are going to be more the elite characters of World of Warcraft who share a class with you. So I'm sure mages will see people like Khadgar, Jaina, maybe Medivh, I don't know what his deal is. And they're also trying to get people out into the world rather than send their followers out for them, which is a major problem Blizzard saw with garrisons, is people were just kind of sending their followers out and hanging out in their garrisons. And frankly, I did the same thing because my garrison was freaking awesome. I just didn't want to leave. And this out into the world thing is what they've been pushing for in the past couple expansions, and we're going to see that again because they're carrying over the no flying to the Broken Isles. Uh, this time it won't be available at launch. There is word that it will be available later in the expansion. Again, how late in the expansion we don't know. Will it be more like Draenor? Possibly. I think I see them doing it a little bit sooner, but we'll have to wait and see. And the last thing I want to talk about is they are revamping the PvP honor system. They're introducing ranks 1 through 50, which will allow you to unlock new items for your character, as well as a separate PvP talent system. I think this is actually a really good idea. It's going to allow them to add back in abilities that were removed simply because they weren't used in PvE. They were only ever used in PvP. And there are some really cool abilities out there that got removed because of this. Simply because not enough people play PvP for them to say, well, we'll just leave it in there. Because, frankly, the spellbooks are getting a little out of hand. Another thing, this is a huge change, too. There will be no more PvP gear sets, and resilience is totally gone as a stat. This means gear is going to have much less of an impact on PvP. They want to focus rather on the skill of the individual player. This is actually going to be to the extent that a fully geared raider may only have a very, very slight advantage over a fresh level 110. And I guarantee you people are going to be up in arms over this, but I think it's going to do wonders for the PvP community. I think we're going to see PvP become a much bigger thing in this new expansion, because that gear has always served as a roadblock that keeps people from participating in PvP. I know it kept me from participating in PvP. I just never wanted to do all the work. I never wanted to do all the dying, literally the dying that is required to gear up in PvP, because that's what you have to do right now. You have to go in there and you have to lose just to get the points you need to get better gear, to be able to win, to get more points, to get better gear, to be able to win even more. And it's just not fun. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope it brings new life to the PvP community. And we may even start seeing PvP tournaments in World of Warcraft become more of a thing. Because we've seen these this increase in esports in the past couple years, and I've always felt like WoW PvP deserves a spot in this, but it's the way it's always been set up. It just hasn't been possible because there just haven't been enough people interested in doing it. And I can tell you, as a person who's watched it, it is really cool to watch, but at the same time, because of the way it works right now, it's just not something enough people can get into. Now, there are, of course, plenty of things I haven't discussed here today, and plenty more news is going to surface. We're going to talk about all of it as it comes up. This right here is essentially what we know about Legion. I am so excited. I hope you guys are too. All of you, even those of you who don't play World of Warcraft, I really hope you take this chance to look into the game, because the community is what's big with WoW. They're just such great people, and I really hope that you get the chance to at least try the game and see if it's a good fit for you. I know it's definitely a good fit for me. It's really the only MMORPG I've ever truly been passionate about. Passionate, not just into, but passionate about, just because the developers themselves are really passionate about it, and it's just such a it's a really good game, and I hope other people can understand, even if they don't themselves like the game. I hope they can understand why I like the game as much as I do. So I'm really excited for Legion. It's going to be a great addition to the Warcraft games. And hopefully I can get into the beta. I'll certainly be reporting from there if I do. And finally, I am very excited to announce that next week I will be joined by Rochester Institute of Technology student Jackie Wiley, who recently completed an internship at Blizzard Entertainment and actually had a hand in creating the latest WoW expansion. So, we're going to be discussing a lot about the world of game development and what it takes to succeed as a student in the industry, not just World of Warcraft Legion. This is going to be a really, really beneficial episode for you to listen to. I highly recommend you check it out. If you've even ever been remotely interested in, I wonder what it's like to actually sit down and develop one of these games. This is going to be a great opportunity for you. And if you're someone who is looking to going into this field, I've talked to Jackie before. Absolutely fantastic conversation. She has so much great advice to share, and I think it's really going to be a great informative time, not one to miss at all, especially for fans of Blizzard's work, but even more so for anyone who's looking to getting into game development like I am. You'll hear more about that in the coming week. You can expect that next Wednesday, hopefully. In the meantime, if you'd like to contact me, I'm on Twitter at PithPith. That's at PITHPIFTH. You can also find me on YouTube, which is where video versions of this podcast are stored, at Gladdstown. That's Gladdstone with 2 Ds. You can find me on DeviantArt, which isn't something I do very much. It's kind of a hobby. But I'm also Gladstone on there. If you'd like to send me an email, I love to hear from you guys. That's jdfarrell7@gmail.com, jdfarrell7@gmail.com. And be sure to check out our website, www.nerdsunderfire.com. That's where we house all of our podcasts. And if you want to get in touch with some other people at Nerds Under Fire, that's the place to do it. All right. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Gladdstown. We are now available on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Please subscribe and leave us a review. That is so imperative right now in these early days. It really helps us. Even just a rating helps. 5 stars, 4 stars. The more support you show for the show, the better the content I can provide. And that's really what I want to do, is provide the best content I possibly can. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next week when we interview Jackie Wiley.